Sup everyone, in this video we will be going over how to make the image that you saw in the thumbnail, basically starting from the sketch, which I'm doing right now, and well, until it is finished. This will be a long video. I think the full process took like 3.5 hours, kind of like that. And yeah, this will be basically me going over the steps I did and explaining a little bit of my thought process and why I do what I do. And all that stuff, basically. Starting with posing, of course, we will use Pose My Art, which is the best website for this in my opinion. Like, I know it was sponsored on the last tutorial, well, the tutorial for this video, basically, that you should check out if you want a faster paced version of this. I know it was sponsored there by them, but I've been using this for years. I used it even before AI art, and now with AI art it's great because you can export your depth maps and open pose and whatever super comfortably. You can use Blender as well, but again, it doesn't have the library of poses that this has. I think opening Blender, needing to learn how to use Blender and all that stuff is very annoying compared to just popping into your browser and doing everything here super fast. So yeah, that's why I love this page, and you will see that here I'm trying to match my sketch as best as I can, but it won't be super possible because my sketch was flawed from the beginning. The perspective I have in my sketch isn't really possible, and it's not something that I really need to focus on. I didn't care that much. I think the perspective 3D gave me is a little bit better. Makes more sense anyway. So yeah, this is me struggling to rotate the character around. And yeah, basically the sketch won't be followed to perfection. One, because of that, because of the perspective, and the other one because of the Dutch angle. I can't really make a Dutch angle in Pose My Art without like grabbing everything in the scene and rotating it a few degrees to make it seem like the camera is tilting. If you can tilt the camera, please let me know. I have no idea how to. But yeah, now you will see that I export the depth maps and such, as I said in the video. If you don't want to see that video, what I'm doing here is basically playing with that little slider down there to try to create the maximum amount of contrast for both characters, right? So here I'm doing the girl, or what will be a girl, and you will see that I want the feet from the foot that is close to the camera to be completely white, because white means close to the camera, and the one that's further away to be almost black, to signify that it's very far away from the camera. And that will basically allow me to get the poses right, because if you have like a depth map that is full white everywhere, you won't get like a good result ever. So yeah, I export 3 depth maps, one for the guy, one for the girl, and now one for the floor, as you can see. And the floor helps me give AI a little bit more of a whole picture of what the image is like, right? Like where each character is positioned in space, basically. And the blade here, you will see that I'm not trying to get a blade that's perfect. I also moved the camera around like accidentally, which means that I will have maps that don't really match up. They are a little different. But yeah, the sword, as I said, I won't get it into Pose My Art directly because I want to draw it later to have this curvature that I had in the sketch. Here I also fake the Dutch angle and the perspective, the lens distortion, I mean, by warping the image around. And then I paint the characters together. So now I have the 2 depth maps that I exported, the man and the woman, together. That way AI sees contrast in both of them. Because if you try to get it with just one depth map, it is likely that one of the 2 doesn't have enough resolution, right? Or doesn't have enough variation for AI to really understand what's going on. Which is why I export 2 of them, basically. And here I'm basically drawing the sword. With a little luck, AI will get it. Spoiler alert, it won't, or at least not at the beginning. Then I try to mask the feet to be on top of the sword, and here I make my first mistake, which is I only export 2 depth maps. I export one depth map for the woman and the man. Well, this depth map basically. I only export this depth map when I should have exported another one that you will see later why. But yeah, so I have this depth map, and now I have to open the open pose reference and distort it as well, because again, I distorted the depth map. I need the open pose to match up with it, so that's what I'm doing right now. And once we have everything distorted and in place, we can move on with Stable Diffusion. So here I'm going to import everything, obviously open pose and depth, which is the only things I have for now. I will also use SDXL for the base image in this case, or at least that will be my first attempt to use PonyXL for this, so I need to use the depth and open pose for SDXL, which are a little worse than the ones for SD 1.5, but PonyXL carries so much when it comes to foreshortening and images with these extreme perspectives. It's incredible. It's a very, very good model for things like that. So yeah, I don't have to worry much. And I will also use regional prompter, so I will activate it and basically divide it as I want it. I don't really use this tool, so I make a mistake at the beginning. Or I don't use it much, I guess. I use it, but not a lot. For those of you who don't know, this basically allows you to divide your prompting into parts. So you can prompt for one side of the image and then the other, or as many sides as you like, really. Here there will be just two, right? So I want to divide my prompt between one man wearing an armor and then one woman from the back, whatever, which we'll see now when I prompt. But that's the main idea for this. And the base, you will see that we have three prompts. We have the base and the other two. The base is like a general prompt that you describe the whole image with, or the basis of the whole image with. Right, and here you will see that I'm pasting the style for Pony, because PonyXL needs these little tags at the beginning of the generation to make it better, which is weird. I don't know why that happens, but hey, you follow it and it works great. So I'm not gonna complain. That model is very, very good. Anyway, yeah, this is where I prompt. As you can see, I'm not very decisive on what I'm typing at the moment. Prompting is one of those things that I don't really care much about. I don't prompt a lot. So every time I need to prompt, it's like, oh, here we go again. What the hell do I type here? But yeah. And that's pretty much it. I will make sure that I don't get nudes. So I will put not safe for work and nude in there, just in case. And yeah, for the man, I just want the man swing his giant sword, whatever, lens distortion. And the key parts I want here are the medieval armor, and basically, if it can get me like the motion of swinging a sword, that's good. I don't expect the image that it generates to be a giant sword where I want it to be and whatever. That's not gonna happen ever. So I not really expect that. I just put it in there so it knows what it's supposed to be. And then for the moment, the main focus is that she is from behind and not looking at the camera, basically, as well as having this foreshortening and all that stuff. I also use the wearing a kimono, which, well, you will see that it doesn't work, but this base image is very, very good. Like, it's unusual to have this good of a first image, which you will see that I don't lose any time. I just bring it directly into inpainting. I'm not trying to play around with my luck and see if I get something better. I do generate another one, just to have something generating while I input the controlled models into image to image and such, but you will see that I don't use it. It's not a great image. But yeah, this one was pretty much perfect. I start by prompting for the clothing on the woman, as you will see, using a low depth strength, because I have a character that's already pretty well proportioned from the get-go, which is very lucky, by the way. And yeah, you will see that we get something very, very decent directly here. The only thing that's missing right now is the high heels, which I will fix with InPaint Sketch. For those of you who are not using InPaint Sketch, I'm very sorry for you. Again, InPaint Sketch is such a great tool. If you're not using it, you are either doing something wrong with your life or doing absolutely nothing wrong with your life, because you don't have to fix anything. But I do think that this is a very, very good tool. I use it all the time. It's very easy to use. You just draw some things with the colors around whatever you're drawing, which, by the way, I'm using the canvas zoom extension that helps with that because you can color pick very accurately. And then yeah, just use a mask blur of 1 in this case, some denoising strength that not enough so that the AI does whatever it wants, but also high enough so that it doesn't look like a sketch. And yeah, with 0.5 it did a great job. And now I will use the same technique to try to add a blade on the other hand, which we don't have at the moment, and I want one. The issue for this is that I don't really know where my depth model has the blade, right? So if I'm drawing the blade in a different position than my depth model, this won't work. Which is why I basically draw, as you can see now, the sky around it. And that way I ensure that, well, if I'm missing with the main sketch, maybe some of the parts of the sky that I draw will get there. Because remember that even if the color itself doesn't change because you're using the same as the background, whenever you paint something, it acts like the mask that you will use for inpainting, like for regular inpainting, I mean. So yeah, basically you allow more parts of the image to change, which kind of worked. Again, this knife that we got here is not great. It doesn't look like we want it at all, like what we wanted at all, sorry. And that's fine, we can inpaint again with a base like this. It will be very easy to get a good sword, like we're seeing right now. Like this is kind of the shape that I want, but the handle isn't there at all, so I'm just gonna inpaint the blade itself without selecting the handle, and that will give me a result that I like. The thing is that I didn't import this as a base again before I started to inpaint the next part, so I will need to rescue this image from the sea of generations that I had to mix it later into the base image. But that's fine, we do that a lot here. I forget to do this a lot of times. And now, well, as you can see, the other thing that I will do is basically inpaint the character to have a kind of better position, better armor, something that looks more like a character. I also don't want a helmet, by the way, because I want the face to be visible and expressive if possible, which I try here with not not the best of lucks, I guess. So I just gave up here. It's something that you do after anyway, because right now we don't have enough pixels to really focus on the head. At least not on a head that's like that far away, right? So yeah, as you can see now, it's time for the blade. This is the hardest part of the image. This will always be the hardest part of the image. The part that's more, or that's closest to the camera, I guess, will be the hardest part to fix most of the time, because mainly if it's like super big in the image, we mean. So if the thing that you're trying to inpaint occupies the whole image and it isn't something that's like, I don't know, super basic, like a background, for example, right? Like if I paint a castle on the background, it will be big, but it's something super basic that AI knows a lot. But in this case, a sword cutting the air with a woman standing on it, and this close to the camera, this distorted, this curved, and all that stuff, it probably hasn't seen one ever. Or maybe it has like one image in the data set of that. So it's kind of rough for it to get right. So what you could do is try to do what I did in the image of the sniper girl in the video tutorial for this. But since this is a blade that's like all in one, and it doesn't have like different parts like a sniper rifle does, it is a little harder to do. So that's why I'm struggling here. And this is the hardest part of the image again. This is where I will spend most of the time fixing it. And as you can see, I'm trying to switch models. I'm trying to go to epic realism. I'll try to use like tile model, whatever. Everything I can do, I'll try basically to get this to work. And here you can see that the epic realism is getting me something closer to a sword. It's metal, at least. It's not like reflective, it's not something cool. It looks more like some flooring made of metal. But yeah, so the other issue that I'm finding here is that, well, I have feet on the blade, and I'm saying, okay, yeah, maybe this is confusing AI. Let's cover them up, and I do that with control net tile, and here I'm trying to demonstrate what I will do, which is with the downsampling rate, you can blur the image a lot, right? So here I will use a downsampling rate that's pretty high to blur this sketch that I did and to make it not look as rough. But at the end of the day, what my issue was, and it's something that I said earlier, is that I didn't have a control net depth model for only the sword. I only had a control net depth model for the sword with feet on it. And that's basically why AI was giving me those results, even though I inpainted over the feet, because it was detecting that my depth map had something there that I didn't want. So what I had to do is to redraw the sword, basically because I forgot to save the selection that I originally made, and had to redraw it again. And then I will also add this little extrusion. Not really that I care about it following the real depth of it, so I don't care that the color is perfect. I don't care if it works or not. I just wanted to give a little bit of a, I don't know how this is called in English, okay, it won't come to me right now, but something of a dent to the blade, so it knows that it has volume, right? That it's not like just a plane, it is something that has a little bit of volume, and it kind of works. As you can see, it's not a blade right now, what it's giving me, it's more like a floor, but at least it has this little extrusion that will work in our favor for sure. So now what I'm going to do is basically go with again with SDXL and see if it works better than SD 1.5, and it kind of does. Not really, it is tough, right? Like this again will be hard to get right. I do attempt a lot of stuff. This is basically me trying luck, and you can see that it kind of works. Like, it's not getting there yet, it's not a blade, but at least we have metal, we have something here that we can work with. You can see that I drag the images into image to image and try luck over the image that we had regenerated again. And now you saw me add a image of a sword into IP adapter. It didn't work at all, no way. So I used like reference only and see if that works. And I don't know to what extent that helps or hurts, I guess. I really don't. I just was, it was a Hail Mary. But hey, it kind of worked, right? Like here, this is basically what I will go for. And I don't know if, again, I have no idea if this image helped or not, but at least we got something that's pretty good, I would say. The main thing that makes this good is that the details follow the depth map, right? So closer to the camera, you can see that there's more space between details. There are more details, and it looks larger. And then as you go farther away, the details like lose intensity and you don't see them as much, which brings this depth feel to the sword, I guess. It doesn't really look like a sword itself, but just having that makes it worth it, because it's metal, it follows the perspectives, it follows all of that. And again, since the sword will have a motion blur, we don't really care that much about the details on it. So yeah, that's basically more than enough for now. What I will do, however, is to place the woman again on top of the sword, because we took her out just for AI to be able to generate the sword properly. And now I will add some attempt at reflections and mainly ambient occlusion to make it feel like she is on top of the blade and not like a floating object that's over the blade, and that they are two separate entities that don't interact with each other, right? So this basically helps AI understand that, hey, these two objects are interacting with with each other, and that will help a lot when we go to the iterating part of the process, where we go with full image to image. But yeah, then I want to add this part of the video where I tried to change some stuff. So for example, here I said, okay, let's change the background, and well, I have that bug happen, which made me change my mind instantly, because the background, you don't usually change the background within Paint Sketch, that's a little too much. What I did try within Paint Sketch was adding some flowing cloth, because I felt like, I don't know, I wanted to fill the gaps a little bit on the image, and maybe this was a good idea, but one, I don't know how to draw a flowing cloth, so it looked very, very bad. And two, I remembered the actual purpose of this image, like the actual idea I had in mind for this, and that those spaces will already be covered up when we finish it. So yeah, that's why I decided not to go forward with this, and also because, as you can see, it doesn't look good at all. Not that you couldn't make them look good, but I didn't really care that much because it wasn't a good idea from the beginning. So yeah, we stopped this, I think, here. I don't think I kept generating more. And then we went to do something a little more productive, I guess. Which in this case is basically the background, this time with Photoshop. So the first thing I will do is mask the characters, the parts of the image that I already like and I don't want to change yet, at least, or not a lot. I'm going to mask them. So in this case, the sword, the guy and the girl will be all masked, and I will save this mask in a different layer just to have it, because it will be used multiple times after this. Basically, I clean up the base mask that Photoshop does with that like selecting tool that it has, that it's very good actually, and then I use my sketch as a reference to build upon the new background. Like I draw basically the big wall that my original sketch had, and then I also draw some other parts that I think should go here, like the floor and some little background on the right, where there is nothing drawn on the original sketch, so I had to improvise there. And these little lines that I'm drawing here are basically a very futile attempt at giving AI a base reference for the perspective, that it did not work at all, I don't think. So the main goal was to try and give it AI, like, hey, this is a fisheye lens, it has some distortion, whatever, but nah. I don't think that worked at all. So maybe it's just me, but I wouldn't do that if you ever try something like this. Now I'm just erasing the characters in a very, very, very vague fashion. I just want to have a way to recover the full background, just in case. The idea for this is that if the background isn't properly generated when I try what I'm going to try, I have a backup plan of just generating the background separately and adding the characters on top of it. But what I'm going to actually try is the main idea, which is basically masking the characters first, like so, and then using inpaint upload to only inpaint the background, right? Not everything, but just the background. And that way we can have something that's a little more cohesive and that makes a little more sense. Now, the first inpaint that I did didn't really work that well. I don't think Pony Excel is super great with this type of inpainting, like general inpainting of the whole image. Maybe I just don't know how to use it for that. But as you can see, I'm not getting good results, so I switched to SD 1.5. I do think that Pony Excel has to be good with that, but I haven't been able to get into that part of Pony Excel yet. So in any case, I just used tile blur with SD 1.5, and that will give me way better results. Like this, basically. This is not perfect at all, right? It's not super good. But hey, it's a little better than what the other results were. Also, one thing I'm going to do is actually switch to a realism model. One, because they are very good with backgrounds, generally. And two, because I think they understand better what I'm going for, or at least better than my anime models. So that's why, or another reason why. You can also see that the fisheye lens effect isn't there at all. I needed to add it to the prompt. Who would have guessed? But the images or the lines that I drew originally didn't help in the slightest. I think I ended up going with this image. Yeah, I did. Of course, this isn't great. This is actually pretty bad, I would say. But I just need this as a base to get some depth maps out of it and maybe add some detail to my original drawing. You will see that what I'm doing here is using depth anything to create some depth maps, and now I will combine them. The reason why is because I don't have the castle on our original depth map that we exported from PostMyArt. So I need to create one with this. I could also have painted it in myself, but I think this way you actually get a more, let's say, precise result to what your actual image is, because our image has changed slightly since the first depth model that we exported. So for example, we have a high heel, the blade is different and all that stuff. So that's why I don't use our original one, and I use one that's created with depth anything, because it's actually pretty good, that preprocessor. Now we want to prompt for anything. This is the iterating part that I was talking about, where we use a depth map that is a general depth map, and then I will use that to create a new base image. Also, well, here what I'm doing is basically combining and mixing the the drawing that I originally had, which I feel like follows the sketch a little better, with some of the details of the new one, but I don't really think that's useful at all. I don't think that was worth doing. Because as you can see, the new image doesn't follow that at all. And here again, as I said in the video, it's just generating and generating and generating until you find something that works, some combination that works. Here I thought that DPM sampler wasn't changing the image enough, so I used the Euler A. The first image I generated wasn't that great, the second wasn't that great either, but that castle on the right there, I think like that's pretty good, so I saved this image to use later. Also the wall itself had a pretty nice shape. Now you will see that I've activated regional prompter, and the main reason why is because the characters are not really what I want. So for example, the soldier is now a dude running away or something. I didn't want that, so regional prompter kind of helps with it being a little more of what I'm describing, right? Now the quality of the image isn't great now. At the moment, again, as I was saying, the Pony XL model is not great with image to image. I think it's also a matter of using a higher CFG scale and all that stuff. Like I need to play with it more. But in this case, I just ended up using old reliable SD 1.5 with some tile model and with DPM SD, because as you can see, Euler A kind of changed the image a lot. And after some generations, I actually ended up going again into Photoshop and mixing them together, which is something I do a lot. Every time I have 3 parts that I like, I mix them together and go again with the process. And in this case, you can see that the castle that the image with no tile actually gave me was pretty cool. I thought that those walls were nice, so I added them into the image and masked the character again, fixing the blades that I thought were a little broken at the moment, just from the inpainting and masking. And then I also added this castle as a background right there, which I felt that matched pretty good with the image, and it didn't distract a lot. The first issue I have is the lag, obviously, and then the other issue was that the castle looked cool, but it looked like there was some mismatch in the flooring and perspective, which is what I'm fixing right now. I'm adding a floor, and I'm trying to close up the space so that it doesn't feel like you can fall through there. Of course, it doesn't matter, but I think it closes the image a little bit more. That's why I'm adding here this little wall and these trees and such, right? To have a little more closure on that part of the image. Here I'm using tile, I think. Yeah, I'm using tile, which makes the image very, very detailed. And in cases like this, that's something I don't want, because I feel like detail in one extreme of the image that isn't the main focal point just basically distracts the viewer from what you want them to look at. And that's why I went with something that is not as detailed. And now what I'm going to do is, again, the iterating step, but this time with Pony XL if I can. And what I will do is basically fail first, because I'm using in-painting with nothing selected. Then I go to image, and then, hey, there we go. Nope, you don't have the depth anything preprocessor selected. But now we're getting somewhere, finally. Of course, it's not great. I think 0.65 was a lot. Also, 0.50, I think, was a lot. I think I ended up going with something like 0.45. And that gave me a pretty decent result. I think this is a pretty nice result overall. And what I'm going to do now is try to fix the hands. For that, I'm going to try first with just regular in-painting and hold pictures, see if it helps or if it does something on its own. And if it doesn't, well, then we're going to move on to the next attempt, which will be probably in-paint sketch. Right, as I always say, in-paint sketch is great, and for this thing is amazing, right? What I'm going to try to do is to give some basic blocks of what the hand will look like, just drawing some very basic shapes of what the fingers will be, where are the fingers, what is the orientation of the hand, right? In this case, the hand is seen from behind, and that's very important. And that's the main reason why I use in-paint sketch in these cases, because you can give this initial orientation. Of course, now you can see that I'm using only masked because we need a lot of detail, and that right there is a pretty great hand with no effort almost. After that, I move on with the other hand with exactly the same strategy, even though I'm getting a bug, as you will see that both hands are getting in-painted even though I'm only touching one, so I just send this to in-painting and in-paint from there with the sketch done. And that's already a good hand right there. So yeah, that can happen sometimes with in-paint sketch, that the other in-paintings that you did like remain and you can't really get rid of them, and that's very annoying, but it happened. But yeah, so now we're going to pretty much correct the other character that is now a woman for whatever reason. I will use only masked, so that way we have a little more resolution to start with, and that way we have some characters that are more defined. And I will basically just repeat this process until I find something that I like. I will also import the open pose model that we had originally, because I want the pose to be correct. As you can see, one of the arms of this character is getting out instead of grabbing the sword, which is not what I want. Because even if the pose is a little weird, even in Pose My Art I made that pose that it didn't really work. I didn't know how to pose it. So even if that's weird in itself, I think it's less weird than what we have right now. So that's basically why I'm trying to re-import the dev map that we had originally, as well as the open pose. Trying to get a pose that matches better with what we had originally. And that's actually something I want to talk about. If I have something in the image that doesn't look right, like for example the pose in this case, I want it to be my fault. It's me who posed the character, and that's why it looks weird. I don't want it to be AI's fault, mainly because if it's my fault, it means I can control it, right? So what I want is to have full control of AI to an extent that what looks wrong in the image isn't because AI can't make it right, it's because I can't make it right. Basically a skill issue. So if the pose looks weird, I'm actually fine with that as long as it's my pose, right? If that pose is something that I wanted to have and that my sketch didn't look weird in that way, but when I made it through AI made it weird, then I'll be sad, because what that means is that I don't have control over AI, right? What I want is to have control over AI to the extent that if something looks bad in the image, it's my own fault. And that's basically why I'm doing this, and that's why I do all of this tutorial and all of this stuff, to learn in the process how I can control AI to the fullest, right? And this is an example of that, because I have a sketch that I'm trying to replicate. I'm not just giving AI a prompt and letting it decide what it wants to do. And as fun as that is, to just let AI iterate and do some random stuff that you really like with just a basic prompt, I think that, to me at least, it's more satisfactory to just be able to draw something and bring that something to life using AI to help you in the process, right? So AI just makes it faster, because maybe I could try to draw something like this, But one, my skills are not to this level at all. Like, I would not be able to draw the anatomy, I would not be able to draw the castle, I would not be able to draw all of that. And I would pretty much spend a whole week on something like this, probably, or even more. So to me, that's the fun part of AI. And I'm talking about this while I try to fix the hands of this character. And I actually just draw them, kind of. Not really, because again, I don't know the pose here. I didn't know how the man was supposed to grab that sword. So I just let AI iterate a lot here, and that's why I decided to talk about this in this part of the video, because I just iterate and iterate and iterate. Now I ended up going into Photoshop to draw a base, because in Paint Sketch I couldn't. And with the base drawn in Photoshop, I had this stacked hands using the sword. And I felt like that was the only possible option for a pose like this to kind of work. So I think I went with that, basically. Then again, Pony Excel is super good with hands. The fact that it came up with that, it's crazy. Came up, and you know what I mean. So yeah, once I had the hands, I tried to inpaint a little bit of the head. Did I say head? No, the head. And try to, get something that's better. I also came up with the idea that, hey, maybe this is not just a guard, because it wouldn't make much sense that there's only one guard, right? Maybe this is the king, that there's nothing else in the castle, there's no one else here to defend him, so he goes out himself to try to defend it. And it doesn't end up well for him, I guess. In any case, this is where I find out that the image doesn't have enough resolution because I messed up earlier. So you will remember that I upscaled this image before. But when I was trying to mix the hands and paint the hands over, what I actually did was import the image into a version of Photoshop that was the low resolution. So I ended up lowering the resolution by mistake. And this is me trying to upscale the image, like, okay, well, now that I messed up, let's see if I can upscale the image and save some time, but that's not the case, that's not gonna happen. So what I ended up doing is just mixing the low res image with the high res image, and yeah, that's it. This is what this is basically. You will see that the hands don't have enough resolution here. I'll also just use this opportunity to fix some other stuff that I don't like, or that maybe needs some repairing, basically, right? And yeah, with that done, we just go to Stable Diffusion again, and this time I'm going to try to inpaint the character once again, but with higher resolution. I think this character I've inpainted like 5,000 times at this point, I don't know why. I'm guessing that's something we could learn from this, that, maybe, wait until the end to really inpaint something of this, because I've had to change this 5,000 times at this point. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I just now iterate a little bit more to fix the arm, the hands, more of the head, try to get him a crown and such. I also use, of course, only masked. I don't know if I explained this, I don't know if I need to at this point, but yeah, basically only masked serves as a way to crop the image while you inpaint, so that way the thing that you're inpainting has full resolution, right? So in this case I'm using 1024 by 1024, and the character when I inpaint will occupy like, I don't know, 80% of the image. So 80% of the pixels go to the character. When instead, when you use whole picture, you get the full context of the image. So in this case I would have like, I don't know, 270 pixels, but the character, instead of the 80% of those 270, will only get like 10%, right? Which means that it has less resolution. And that's why you use only masked when you need to have more resolution. And in this case, using only masked served for me to get a pretty decent face, pretty decent armor, okay resolution. And in this case, well, the face is that one, I think, is the one I used. So that's pretty much it, at least for that. Yeah, I tried a little more, but I didn't really like the results that I got. Because as you see, the lack of context means that the character will look wherever they want. But yeah, now it's just a matter of dragging this image into the other one, combining it with the hands that we had that weren't great because of the lack of pixels they have, and now they will have those pixels, and we will be able to get a better looking hand, I guess. I will use a very low denoising strength, that way we basically have the same structure of the hand, but just with more resolution. And I think that worked pretty fast. It's not like the best hand, since it's something so small in the image. I didn't really care that much, so I didn't really bother fixing them super greatly. I think whatever kind of works or looks like it works, I left that there, and that's it. Basically. And now it's, I think, fixing time. I will draw over the parts that I don't like, including the leg. This is something that gave me a lot of trouble because I didn't know the anatomy of this part of the leg. I didn't know how to draw it, so I spent a lot of time trying to draw it correctly, and I couldn't. I just left it at that. I think that looks okay. But yeah, I also fixed the rooftop to give it a little bit more shape and a little bit more definition. Not something so abstract, I guess. Some parts will be abstract, like this tower here. You don't really know what's going on there, but at least it's a little better than what we had initially, I guess. And yeah, now I think it's just post-processing left. I don't think there's anything we really need more from AI. I will use it again, but not for like compositional reasons or to inpaint or whatever. Here I'm just taking some of the detail out of the highlights of this character. I felt like they were too bright. But now if we flip the canvas horizontally, I think that the composition loses a lot, because the left side has lost a lot of weight. And I think one reason is because the blade isn't as bright, so you kind of lose the blade. And the other reason is, well, because of this I'm adding now. I think adding some other big shapes in those parts really give a lot to the composition. It closes the image more, and it makes the viewer stay inside the image a little more. Again, I'm not a master of composition, I'm not great at it, but I really like looking at compositions and trying to figure ways to make better compositions. I think that's the part that I like the most about AI. Not AI, images in general, actually. And AI works pretty well with this, because you can just generate a lot of images and study what the compositions are. That's also something you can do, or you can just study regular artists, I guess. Here I'm trying to get the blade to look a little more distorted and not just like a little knife, but instead something that goes away from the image, right? Okay, and now you might be wondering what I'm doing with AI and why I'm generating clocks. Well, if you remember the thumbnail, then you might not be wondering that at all, but yeah, the main idea here is to get some holograms or some graphics to then add into our image. That's why I'm using some blue over black. And that's why I'm generating a lot of images at random without really caring much. And then yeah, I save the ones that I like the most. I just bring them into the image, and that's it. Just try to find a good blending mode that works. I will duplicate them. I will basically move them around. If one doesn't work, like this one, just take it out. I don't really care. It's not like we have a lack of images. I generated like 20 in 5 seconds, so it's not something I care about. And the main idea for these clocks is to serve as holograms that kind of represent time stopping, right? So I will add them in all those little spots I drew as a way to represent that, like a spell, like a time spell. Here I made a little mistake where I didn't duplicate the main image, so that's why I'm going back again. And now I did. So with this, I'm just going to duplicate these clocks, maybe change them a little bit. That's why we have multiple, right? And just place them around the image one at a time until I have all the ones that I want. I don't think I add any extra ones from the things I drew. I think that stays pretty consistent. Some of them I do add some blur to them. That way they don't stand out as much. But yeah, it's basically a do and repeat, just importing blending mode, duplicating and moving them around so that they look okay. Then I will add some more light to them, I guess, but for now this is okay. I want them to look like clocks. I want people to realize that, okay, this is something to do with time. And then what is important about this is that they don't distract from the main action, but that they are there and they are visible, and that people can look around to find them, right? Like it's not like it's hard to find them, but you know, that's the main idea. That I'm explaining post-processing a lot here because I do think that this is the part that I have the most fun in, because there's a lot of possibilities from one image. You can do a lot of stuff. So yeah, that's basically why. And here you can see me that I'm playing a little bit with the values. I flip back and forth with the image to kind of refresh my eyes and see if, okay, this composition works. I don't know, I've been staring at this image for what would be like 3 hours now. So I'm kind of bored of it. I need to flip back and forth to kind of refresh my eyesight on it. I used to have a a key binded to flipping the canvas, but now I don't because it's a new PC, so I can't do that. Or I could, but I'm too lazy to do that. So yeah. Anyway, you can see that I'm playing with the values here. I'm kind of adding some light, removing some, adding some motion blur. In fact, no, I'm just adding blur. I will add motion blur in a second, which is what I'm going to do right now when I finish sorting out my images or my layers, sorry. And here I will add a blur for the blade with the path blur gallery or filter, whatever this is. Basically, this one will kind of simulate the motion of the blade towards the camera. Then I will add another blur to simulate the motion of the blade swinging laterally. But for now, this is the one that I will add. And of course I will mask it and just make it affect only the blade, which is the important part for this. While I was doing this, I realized that there were some minor issues in these parts of the image that I was fixing right now. Fairly easily, I re-add the reflection and the ambient occlusion of the girl over the sword, just to make it feel a little bit more on the blade. I will also add the ambient occlusion on the one that's closer, of course, remove some of the motion blur from the feet. The feet aren't moving, so they shouldn't have it. And now we apply image again, and I think I do add the motion blur laterally, yeah. This time I do this. I think I re-add one again, just to make it a little more exaggerated. But yeah, as you can see now, it's basically just painting over the parts that I don't like. So here, for example, the blade didn't really continue as it should, so I'm just drawing over stuff and trying to fix that manually because it's easier than going to AI. Just grab colors from the sides of the image and paint over. It's not really something that's hard or time consuming. Now I'm going to try to make the viewer understand who is this spell affecting, right, and who is casting it. So now we have the clocks and we have all that and the little lights and whatever. So, but the thing is that you don't know what's happening. It doesn't really make much sense. And I hope that with this it makes sense. I don't know if it does. It makes sense to me, of course, because I made the image, right? So what I'm going to do is basically desaturate the whole image, make it look super muted, super dead, I guess. And then I will select the woman and I will make her not be affected by that, right? So the idea, or at least what I hope this kind of signifies, is that everything has stopped except her. She is the one casting it. She is the one that is in control in this situation, and that's kind of the goal with this layer of desaturation. And now basically I will save the mask just in case I need it later, which, spoiler alert, I didn't, but basically because I had it in a different way that was more accessible, not because I didn't reuse this mask. But yeah, now that's, I think, better. I think this kind of represents a lot better what the spell does or what's going on in the image. And there I fixed some cloth that I didn't really like. I also now spend a little bit more time on giving some parts of the image some color, just so it doesn't look this dead, because full desaturation is bad in my opinion. It's not like it's bad, but you know, it kills the image very quickly. It makes you look at it and get bored very fast, so that's why I added some colors overall. And yeah, that's basically it. I revisit the clocks, I revisit the lights, I revisit everything a lot of times. I flip the canvas, as you can see. I'm basically at this point experimenting, trying what works, what doesn't. I also add some blur to the background, that way you kind of have some feeling of depth as well. Always keeping in mind that I want the blur not to affect the focal point, right? The parts that I want the viewer to spend more time looking at, those places I won't blur, because detail kind of attracts where the eye will be looking at, because there's more stuff to focus on. I will also add some more color to the crown. I think that's something that doesn't really make that much of a difference, but you know, I think it makes it look more like a crown, and you understand easierly. Is that a word? I don't know. No, it is. It makes you understand what's going on faster, I think, which is good. And yeah, that's basically, I don't think... Oh yeah, no, there's something more I want to do here. In fact, I'm just now playing, seeing what filters go well with the image, what works, what doesn't, kind of going back and forth, looking at this from a distance, looking at this from close up, trying some LUTs, trying some stuff like that. And now you see, what's that? Why are you blowing the image up? Well, the main reason for this is because I felt like the woman was lost a lot if I looked at the image from far away. And I'm going to try to add a rim light, which is a light that comes from, well, basically that divides the character from the background a little bit. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm using the mask that we had before to try to draw a bit of this light on the contour of the character, and that way it stands out a little bit more. And since I have the clocks and such that are blue, I kind of have an excuse for this light. It's not like it's coming out of nowhere. I think it makes a little sense. It's not directionally properly positioned, because there's nothing that should give this this halo around her, but I think it's fine. I think that it's justified enough. And I also add some other lights, but that's basically why. I also paint some lights on the background, on the image in general, that kind of justify that these clocks are there in the image. It's not like just an overlay, because they have light that is affecting the image overall and other parts of the environment. Here I also saw that the blade was wrong, because I think at some point I masked the blade in a way that I shouldn't have, and then, well, that happened. I tried to look what it was, for what layer was causing it, and I ended up just painting over it, and that's it. It was faster. Then I also just, I don't know, to clean up some parts. Maybe this light was a little bit too harsh, so I raised it a little bit on the contour. And that's basically it from now. I think it's just adding some details, looking at everything, trying to get the hair to look right, trying to get the main shapes to look right. And some other thing I want to add here is a tattoo on her. The main reason for it is, well, wait, this is basically me just correcting the color of the skin. It was like super white, while the hand was a little bit too reddish. So what I did is basically add a layer of color to it. But yeah, back to the tattoo. The reason why I added is basically to further justify that she is the one casting the spell, right? She is the one that has time abilities or time related stuff in her, I guess, right? That's basically the main reason. And you can say I struggled a little bit, mainly with masking, because I didn't make a perfect circle, so I had to mask it manually. But yeah, now I just add the tattoo. I don't think it looks great. It's something I'll need to learn from for the next time, I guess. Because I don't think it sells it too well. But it's alright. It is what it is. And yeah, then just add some finishing details to the image for now. I will also just bring the whole temperature of the image a little bit lower, so that way the clocks feel like they are affecting the environment a bit more too. Well, What else? I also thought that the blades didn't really stand out, which is why I'm adding this like lighting images, or sorry, lighting curves to make the background a little darker and then the blades a little glowier, or a little, what's that? What would that be? Well, lighter, yeah. I don't know why I was struggling so much on that word, but that's pretty much why I'm doing all of that. I'm also, looking at the rim light, looking if it looks good. And I think that's where I left this image for that day. And then the next day, what I did is I looked at the image and I thought that from afar, if you looked at this image from very far away, the values of the dress for the woman and the values for the sky were too close together. So looking from very far away, you couldn't distinguish what was going on. Which is why you can see me painting the sky with a little bit of white, basically to make it lighter and make her stand out a little bit more. And I think it works pretty well. It's very, very simple, but it's super effective. You just need to make it not seem super forced, I guess. And even so, if you justify it enough, I think it doesn't really matter. And then I think I just added some more motion blur to the blade, and that would be it. Oh yeah, I also did this, yeah. I corrected the shape of the blade. I thought it was a little bit too deformed, I guess, and I tried to, correct a little bit the flow of it. I think it looks better now, I'm not sure, but yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, I think it looks better. And with this, I think the last step I will do is just add some more motion blur to the blade. That way it looks like it's moving more on the part of the tip of the blade. It's not something I will add to the whole blade, but only or mainly the part that's closest to the camera and further away from the guy that's swinging. So yeah, that would be it for this image. Please let me know your feedback on the comments. I would really like to know if you felt like this video was too fast, too slow, that I cannot talk, improvising, whatever, right? Let me know, and I hope you liked it. See ya.